Some good news afoot. President Trump expected to announce the framework of a trade deal with Britain today. This is a big one. Obviously, Britain's a big trading partner.
Does that mean my Stilton will not be overpriced?
Yes, that's exactly what it means. I think that's central to the framework.
Uh-huh.
The beginnings of deals being cut that hopefully, ideally, this is the point, reduce tariffs and barriers on both sides with trading partners, engendering more markets for American goods, freer trade, more prosperity all the way around. That's how we hope it goes. And this is a good first step, it sounds like. Question I have is, what is the market factoring in? If Larry Kudlow is right, that what you saw in Q1 was the market front-running expected tax relief, and then if that's true, then potentially we have bottomed out and we should see a rebound so long as we get the tax relief and we get trade deals done that are in advance of trade, as I mentioned. Is the market factoring in deals getting done, or is it still skeptical? Because that portends different outcomes in the short term, at least, with respect to the markets, I presume. But I don't want to presume things. I want to check my facts. So to help us do that, we're pleased to be joined by Jim Iuorio, host of the Futures Edge podcast, contributor to wirepoints.org, and proprietor of Brandt's Restaurant in Palatine. Jim, thank you as always.
Thank you for having me, Dan.
So how's the Stilton at Brandt's when I go there?
What's Stilton? I heard you say that before. Is that something English? Because we don't serve anything
It's a
English.
cheese.
Cash is a British dandy.
Anglophile, like Dan Proft taught me to be.
Yeah, I would say dandy
with my scotch and soda.
Yeah.
If I was going to pick out food to serve, English would not be too hard.
Yeah, well,
they're known for their cuisine.
They're known
no
for
shepherd's pie at Brandt's.
What about roast beef?
I do like shepherd's pie.
Sunday roast.
No.
Come on.
All right. So back to the markets, and so is this like deal with UK, the perhaps a deal with India in the not too distant future? As you heard from Besant the other day, 17 of our top 18 trading partners, we have active talks. They've made proposals. There seems to be progress that is occurring, and so results should be coming soon, like with the UK today. Is that something that the market has factored in, expecting these deals to be cut, or not? Because if they're cynical and Trump over delivers based on their expectations, then we should see some real rebounding, shouldn't we?
So yes, and so this one matters. The deal with the UK matters a bit, but realistically, if we take a step back and ask ourselves, are we really surprised that deals are going to be cut with the UK and with Canada and Mexico? Of course, they always were. This was always about one adversary, and that still exists. So these are only important in the context that if the rest of the world is kind of falling in line, then China doesn't have the same leverage that it did before. As far as I know, I described it like this before. It's like the old Western movie, and all the other 70 gunfighters are shoot dead around the street, and now it's just the two facing off against each other. So we should know something about that after the Switzerland talks. We'll see how that works out.
Well, right. And so what about stories like this that keep accumulating? Also seemingly important, but I know they're one-off. So what is sort of the gestalt of understanding with thinking about the market again and people's 401ks. The Volkswagen Group, second largest automaker in the world, announced that Audi is planning to make some of its crossover and SUV models in America. We want to localize more strongly in the USA, a company spokesman said. So the foreign direct investment, the announcement of onshoring of some manufacturing, even from a foreign company like Volkswagen, is that received as just a one-off sort of ordinary course of business? We already understand that America is the destination for flights to quality, or are these developments important?
No, I think they're important. I don't think it's viewed as a one-off. I think it's part of the shakedown of this policy. Remember, when Donald Trump started to head down this road, the general market and most of the economists I know. The problem wasn't with the destination he was pointing at. That's a reasonable goal to get people to drop tariffs on us. The reason the markets were a little bit worried was about the pace he was doing something, because it disrupted markets without question. But these are and the market believes that any sort of fruit to harvest from this policy would be far into the future. Well, as we see them start to come in, and you always got to balance it against what was planned by Audi before that. But
Yeah.
I think these are some really good and important headlines that are coming a little earlier than I would have expected.
The viewpoint of the administration seems to be, as it pertains to the Fed, seems to be something akin to what Mark Penn sort of interestingly posted on Twitter. Mark Penn, a pollster, doubling as an economist. I mean, he's a smart guy. He has opinions. That's fine. But here's what he said, and I think it's interesting in part because I think this is basically Trump's attitude. Tariffs are taxes that go to the government coffers. If Trump had increased corporate taxes or states increased sales taxes, such moves would not be considered inflationary. Taxes take money out of the economy, and the response to that should be to strengthen the economy with rate cuts. Otherwise, the Fed is slowing the economy down in response to the imposition of tariffs, working against administration policy rather than furthering it in ways it would never do for any other tax mechanism. Its actions are upside down. And, particularly the argument goes in comparison to other central banks that are cutting rates. What say you?
I think that's an interesting take, because I've argued for months and months that tariffs might be mildly inflationary, but nowhere near how they're being portrayed for a couple of reasons. One, most oftentimes the country of the exporter tends to subsidize the sector exporting. Then the company that exports themselves tends to compress margins. So it's split, and there's a couple different layers in that too, but it's split before it hits the consumer. But that's not the most important part. The most important part is if they are actually inflationary, they're not persistent and embedded inflation that's going to go on quarter after quarter. It's a one-time price adjustment. So the notion that they're wildly inflationary and it's going to put us in this stagflationary spiral, I think was completely unfounded. I like Mark Penn's explanation. I don't 100% agree with it, but I like that as kind of a counterbalance to the stupid argument that they're wildly inflation and the sky's falling and we're all going to die.
Going back to the expected tax relief, which sort of hangs in the balance. It's a lot more precarious than I think some might have thought at the outset of this term, because you have some blue state Republicans that are trying to get SALT relief for their wealthy leftist constituents, like Lawler in New York. If tax relief didn't happen, the promised extension of the 2017 tax relief, in addition to the other bolted on promises about overtime wages and tips and Social Security. If it didn't happen, or if it happened such a way that the top rate went up, that the SALT deductions were raised considerably to bring in the wealthy in blue states to lower their tax bills, what would the market feedback be, do you think?
I think if those things don't go through, 2025 will be a lot more rocky than I originally thought it was going to be, and I thought it was going to be pretty rocky. My little cabal of analysts all think that the much better way would have been to start with deregulation and tax relief at the same time they were going on with the tariff things, because obviously the tariffs scare people, and we needed some salve on the wound on the other side. I think he's got about the next 2 months before really heading down the road of extending the tax cuts, additional tax cuts, corporate, like you said, capital gains tax at 23.8% is asinine. It is completely ridiculously too high, and it's punitive, and it doesn't then end up collecting revenues from that tax because nobody takes the capital gains. But I don't want to go down that road yet. But I think he's got about 2 months to start focusing on that, and the regulatory piece of that is going to be even more important than the tax part of it. And if that doesn't happen in the next 2 months, I think there could be some rocky waters for the economy and for asset prices.
If there is a give and take on the tax deal, where you have, since you got such a slim majority in the House in particular, and I'm completely opposed to this, but if there was horse trading, for holding all the rates, extending all the rates at their current level and reducing corporate and capital gains, we want that. We're going to increase the SALT deduction for those blue state Republicans. Is that Is that sellable? Is that in terms of market feedback that says this is a good enough deal to provide proper incentives for work and investment?
I think so. I think, like I said, there's some parts of it that have to be focused on harder, particularly the corporate tax rate and the capital gains tax. As far as the SALT stuff goes, I believed at the beginning that was almost, that was set in to punish what am I here? Blue state. That's the Democrat state, right? To punish the blue state people who are particularly real estate owners. And I think that's pretty much an absurd tax anyway, but maybe that's my bias talking because I do have a couple properties in a blue state. But I think it can sell. I don't think he should talk about raising taxes on people who make over $1 million again. That was a terrible idea, and I hope they mention that again.
Well, he's not. Trump's not talking about it, but some of the House Republicans were, and that was the problem. He actually threw a wet blanket on it to his credit.
Didn't at first he said it sounded reasonable or something, and then he turned down. I thought, whatever.
Yeah,
keep that out of it. We want people who make $1 million a year. We want them to allocate their capital even more so than the poor people do. The notion that the government can absorb their capital and then reallocate it in a better, more efficient way is just absolutely confounding based on historical evidence.
So the must-have is capital and corporate, in your view.
That's my view. Yes.
All right. So Scott Bessent and U.S. trade representatives are on their way to Switzerland right now, and lo and behold, their Chinese counterparts just happen to be stopping by at the same place at the same time. Do you think they're going to accomplish anything? Because this is a actual first face-to-face meeting.
My gut says no. They're not going to accomplish anything. They probably both walk away from the table. If you read The Art of the Deal, you're always supposed to walk away from the table a few times, I think. So it's kind of, and Trump has the flair for the drama. He likes a good story like this. So I think that these first round of talks will probably come up empty, but that's just kind of a betters, that's just where I'm putting my chips. I don't have any real fundamental analysis on it.
My question, but where is a good source of information about China? The protests, the layoffs, the factories, the economy. I don't know where I can go now. I don't trust the news media.
No doubt about it. And to the initial, the surface deep answer to the question is there's no good source of China. That's why I've rarely invested in China my entire career, just because it is so murky, the data coming out of it. However, that being said, if you really want to try to ascertain what the smart money, what the market believes, you look at things like the price of copper. And the price of copper has been hanging in and trending up over the last couple of years, but it's reflecting two things. One, it's not necessarily saying that the Chinese economy is good. What it is saying is that the Chinese economy has a lot of resources to deploy and inject money into the system as things slow down. But that's really the only way you can get a solid read on China. They are not forthcoming with data like they should. Even countries that are our good friends sometimes kind of massage the data. Even the United States massages the data. But China does it in a little more serious way.
It's too bad there wasn't some sort of protection for Skype. Just since we're in the conversation about government as a sword and a shield, and some people get protected and some people get punished, and the idea of politicians picking winners and losers. Skype, you remember Skype, consumer service was shut down by its parent company, Microsoft, on Monday this week. That was a $12 billion acquisition by Microsoft, shut down its consumer service. It was tracking to be a monopoly, so the trust busting set sort of said 33% of the global market before COVID, and then along came Zoom, and away now has gone Skype. A lesson there about creative destruction, Jim?
And creative destruction happens, and you can gnash your teeth and clutch your pearls all you want. It's supposed to happen that way. And when you show me monopolies in any sector, I will immediately show you barriers to entry that were put up by onerous government regulation. That's the only way that monopolies have ever been created in this country, is when the government restricts any sort of level playing field competition. But to see one company win and one company lose, you grab your BlackBerry, and BlackBerry was the greatest product I had ever seen in my time. It was just mind blowing, and then all of a sudden, it is completely antiquated.
Yeah, great movie about the rise and fall of BlackBerry too. That it's on one of the streaming services. I think it's called.
good.
Wait, is it called Blackberry? I can't remember the name
Called
of it.
Blackberry.
Now. I think it is. Anyway, Jim Iuorio is the host of the Futures Edge podcast and special contributor to WirePoints, wirepoints.org. Also, the proprietor of Brant's in Palatine,
Yes.
which does not serve British food.
Which is not, nor will it.
You
will
have
it?
you
Never.
have roast beef, don't you?
We
Come
don't
on,
have
Jim.
roast beef, John. We are kicking it around, though.
They have ribs.
They have ribs.
Try,
They have
the ribs.
their burger. The Brant's burger is what you want to have, and then morph into the tacos are good
I'm just
too,
gonna
and
go
their
have
salads.
to. I'm just gonna have
It's
to
a
go
great
over
place.
there.
yeah,
I'm gonna go
you,
over
Amy,
there.
and Bunky.
No, my wife will drive me, and she'll give me an Italian lesson so I could talk Italian to Jim. Okay?
Perfect. I just got back from Italy on Monday.
Did you have cacio e pepe?
I didn't. No. I had a lot of meat and pasta.
Did you see
Too much
the?
on that.
Did you visit the 13-foot statue of the nondescript black woman in Florence?
I did see it. Yes.
You did.
You did see it.
What did you think?
Yeah. We were walking around the square by the dome, and when we saw it, all four of us were like, what is happening here? And it was really it was a bummer. It's a bummer to think, this is a whole show on its own, and you know how I feel about health stereotypes and body positivity image. This stuff is all complete nonsense, and I want it to go away so badly.
Out of all places, you think I would escape the woke, and then you're walking in Italy of all places.
And slapped in the face.
Yep. Boom.
Did any of your group say, I wish we had something like that in our parks in Chicago instead of Columbus?
Hey, Jim, you think that slapped you in the face?
No, they did not.
You think that slapped you in the face? Wait till they put up that statue of Lori Lightfoot with her exposed dong in Grand Park. Just wait for that.
It's called meatballs and sausage.
Jim Iuorio, thank you so much. Jim Iuorio,
you
a
go.
market analyst and art critic.
And
Thank
he
you,
joined
Jim.
us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
There's only one radio show in Chicago talking about today's biggest stories and telling you what they really mean. That show is this one, Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
Patrick was way behind on his IRS taxes.
I was in way over my head. The total amount ended up being somewhere just over $30,000. $30,000